Clap.
So, fuck off! Sup, nerds? I'm James, here with
Jimmy.
And today we're talking about one of the most revered movies in history, Twilight
Zone, the movie. So, this is how I got him to watch this. I was like, hey James, we're gonna watch a movie. And I'm doing a search trying to find it. Twilight. And he's all like, I don't want to watch Twilight. So, he got all mad and...
No. Let's be fair. He looked
So,
at me.
this is an
He
anthology
looked at
movie
me and he
based
said,
on Rod
"Do you
Serling's
want to watch
TV show."
Twilight?" No. Don't lie to the camera.
Moi? Anywho, the movie, anthology set up based on the Rod Serling series, The Twilight Zone. Four directors came in. We have Joe Dante, Steven Spielberg, George Miller,
I forgot the third.
and John Landis.
Oh, John Landis.
That's why I said four, so you can forget the third, but there were four.
Shut up.
There you go. So, opens up with, and this is what's awesome, it was made in 1983. James knows some of the references, but has never seen the movie. So when it opens up with Dan Aykroyd and Albert Brooks driving in a car, I got to say, well, Dan Aykroyd, who we did recognize, and Albert Brooks, you know, the voice in Finding Nemo, and he's like, he sounds exactly the same. I'm like, yes, it's hilarious that that guy now is in this movie from long ago. So the prologue was set up. John Landis, and then he did the first one, which is tragic, unfortunately, in that there was a death on set. Very horrible death. Vic Morrow and two children died while filming this. There was actually a huge lawsuit, ugly, bad, horrible thing. You can go read about that elsewhere. Jennifer Jason Leigh, who you might know from Fast Times at Ridgemont High or Backdraft, was Vic Morrow's daughter. So it was generational, unfortunately, not awesome. But the first story sets this man who is clearly racist, having a bad day, spouting in a bar all about Jews, blacks, women, just everything bad, South Asians.
Just the entirety of Asia.
Yeah, really bad.
Wow.
But
Horrible
that's
person.
what the Twilight Zone is, and then sets him, Vic Morrow, into this world where he is each of those individuals experiencing the same vitriol that he was spewing in the bar. I have no idea what order this was supposed to be told because it was clearly re-edited according to what happened in real life. But it's perfect Twilight Zone.
Yes. Imagine, if you will, a man so bigoted the universe said, "Fuck you." It's pretty much what it is. He's first thrown into Nazi Germany, which, wow, the set detailing is terrifyingly accurate. Also, the people they had playing Nazi soldiers spoke very fluent German, which was also very terrifying. And then he's thrown into like 40s, 50s, 60s Southern America with the KKK, which was like, Jesus Christ.
Which is great because then we have another little cameo, and he's like, that guy looks familiar. And again, these guys are all 30 to 40 years younger than James's experience. It was John Larroquette.
That hit me by surprise. I'm like, oh. And then, after having a run-in with the white sheep people, for lack of better terms, he is thrown right into the Vietnam jungle, and it's...
And what's interesting is, in the story, the character has no idea what's happening, so he presents himself to the American soldiers being like, oh my gosh, I'm American, but he doesn't know he is being seen as an Asian, Southeast Asian, Vietnamese, or Viet Cong, or Laotian, somewhere in the realm. So the soldiers see him as an enemy and start shooting at him.
This was, in the modern era, this cuts too true in the fact that people like that still exist, and that hurts me, that people can live in the real world and be that bigoted, and it's almost as if people should experience this to, I don't know, be a little more open to the idea that everybody has their own problems.
Well, that's what's interesting is the resolution is he is now in a cattle car a la Germany during World War II. being taken away with a whole bunch of other Jewish citizens, and he's trying to yell at his two friends who are in the bar because now he's seeing his normal timeline but experiencing the German timeline, waving at them, help, 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 as he's being taken away, as many Jewish families were at the beginning of World War II. So it does feel it. It's definitely comeuppance, but it's not satisfying comeuppance because it absolutely sucks, and that's the epitome of the Twilight Zone, just making you see things in a different light.
Absolutely. This story cuts deep, and it is... Wow, more people in the modern era need to see this, because they were not afraid to show the horrors of Nazi Germany, the KKK, and the Vietnam War. And especially for an 83 film, that was ballsy to show that stuff on film.
And I mean, to bring up a good point, we're only about 8 years removed from the Vietnam War. So that was an interesting point. But then we get into saccharine in the best way.
Thank God it was Spielberg after, who was that, Landis?
John Landis.
Oh, thank God.
And this is also what shows the Twilight Zone wasn't always creepy and scary. It was also mystical and wonderful, and that is what we get at the nursing home.
Oh, so I only know the dude from The Shining.
Scatman Crothers.
Scatman, Jesus, sorry. Scatman, he's in an elderly home with a bunch of other elderly folks, and I know him from The Shining, where he gets brutally murdered in character. So to go from that to a happy old man, I'm like, oh, thank God, it's far less brutal. And they're in an elderly folks home, and he's like, what games did you used to play? And it's just remembering childhood. There's this old fart whose family abandons him, which his grumpiness is not his fault. His family, they're assholes. That's all I have to say on the subject matter for that part.
So I double-checked Scatman Crothers' age when this came out because I wanted to make sure I wasn't being Wilford Brimley. He actually was in his 70s, so I felt better. But his smile, like I could see a 2-hour movie of him just smiling because he's so genteel, happy, nice, and he convinces these other older folks in this home to just be kids again.
Yes.
And they do, and they go out and play, and I don't even know if you know this game until watching it. Kick the Can.
Of course I know Kick the Can.
I don't know. What, it was
I
on,
have
it was on
played Kick the
Nintendo?
Can.
Is that was a...
I have actually played Kick the Can.
Anywho,
Switch.
so they go out and play Kick the Can, and while playing, they literally become childlike. They become their younger versions, and they're running around doing everything kids do, and it was so heartwarming as Scatman stayed the same age as watching him, again, with that infectious smile. I just love it. And it comes to the end of the night, and they have to go back to bed. And he's like, if there's a little bit more magic, whatever, and they get up. And then the kids are in their beds, and the old fogey gets up and like, there's kids in this. And then the person who's in charge of the house, the head nurse, whatever, comes in. He's like, what's going on? And one of the kids stayed a kid, and he's making this valiant speech as he's heading out the window. And this old man approaches like, well, can I come with you? And he's like, you can't. You missed your opportunity, basically. And that's probably the saddest part of that whole segment.
But I like to think of it in a different way. I like to think that Scatman's character is a psychopomp. If any of you have taken an AP literature course, or, for lack of better terms, the ferryman, the man who brings souls to the land of the dead.
Excellent reference, James. Thank you for bringing that up. So we get to the next day, and everything's back to normal, except for the old curmudgeon is now down on the front lawn, all by himself, just kicking that can around the lawn. And you can see that he's not going to be able to have that same experience that the others did, but he has let it go that his family is not going to take him home every other weekend or whatever.
Not to mention, I would also like to add, the one elderly man who stayed young and jumped out the window is nowhere to be found. I just hit the mic. Sorry, everybody at home.
And what happens at the end? Scatman Crothers sees his friend kicking the can in the front lawn, goes around the corner to another nursing home, and he begins the process again. And it's just, I get it. It's Steven Spielberg being all cutesy and saccharine. I don't care. It was a perfect follow-up to the first segment, so I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And even with my interpretation that gets a little dark with him being a psychopomp, it's still sweet and endearing in the way it's done. It's not like, you're dead. It's like, no, be free. Be free, young soul.
Which then takes us to Joe Dante's
Oh, God.
segment, and I told James this is the one that sticks with me, is freaky deaky. Like, this one messed me up as a kid, and there's imagery in that still hits me. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. This one doesn't even start. It starts and ends in two completely different ways, and you don't even expect it. It opens with a woman just. She stops by a restaurant.
She's clearly all packed up, leaving whatever life she had to go to another life. And it's funny because the dude, I don't remember his name, but he was also in Gremlins, which is Joe Dante. It's like, oh, every time she mentions a town, he's like, oh, beautiful town, beautiful city. Every time she mentions one. So, yeah. And then she answers back with, yeah, it's a beautiful city, where she just was leaving because, yeah.
Yeah. And so she has taken the wrong turn, ended up in the wrong place. She's getting new directions. And there's some kid playing at an arcade cabinet being a little piece of shit, messing with the TV. Gosh, we can't have nice things in this town.
And she obviously has a soft spot for him. They do reveal that she was a teacher. And she feels something for him, but she gets herself out of the situation, gets into her car. She backs up and accidentally hits the kid. And as we were joking at the time, James was like, oh my God, that was super realistic. And I was like, well,
Again, probably a real person, which is... Oh.
And I surmised it was probably just a kid because it was the 80s, there were no laws. Who cares?
Yes, so our leading lady gets out of the car, helps the kid up, and offers to give him a ride home.
They go to the middle of nowhere. There's no neighborhoods, no nothing, just this beautiful house. And he takes her in, introduces her to the family. And Anthony, on the way, had said, it's my birthday, like sort of out of nowhere, where he'd been in this random restaurant playing an arcade game. It's his birthday, whatever. So he gets in and introduces her to the family, and the family's like over emotional, not necessarily overjoyed, just too much emotion coming at her with like, oh my God, we're so happy to see you and meet you, whatever, any friend of Anthony's and random ours.
It's like when you watch one of those like Nickelodeon or Disney shows where it's
That's
like it's fake acting, it's not even trying. And but because they're such good actors anyways, it's not to the point of, you know, it's an actor on a set. It's people like acting to fight for their lives, and it's incredible how they get this across in their first interaction.
And every time we see a television, and we saw this in the beginning when they go into it, is everything is animation. It's a cartoon, and it's like old style cartoon, like Looney Tunes, even older than that. The style, and we see on the screen the house that they just entered.
Yeah, that got creepy.
So it's like,
fast.
okay. So Anthony gives a tour of the house, and while he's taking her upstairs, the family dives into her purse and her belongings to check out what she has, which again is like, what is going on?
And while she's upstairs, this is the part that freaked me out. The upstairs is painted and modeled after 40s, 50s rubber hose cartoons. So it's black and white with like that slight blue twinge. And so Anthony goes somewhere off screen, and our leading lady gets lost, and she happens upon a room where there's a set of beds, and there's this quiet girl sitting in a wheelchair facing a television set.
And we only see her from behind, and Anthony describes that that's my sister. She doesn't talk. This is the scene.
She got into an accident.
Oh, yeah, she got into an accident. And this scene has stayed with me forever, freaked me the fuck out. Camera turns to now behind the TV, and we see just her head up, and Anthony and the teacher in the background, and then the camera comes up, and we see this woman, no mouth. No mouth whatsoever, not even like, oh, her mouth is sewn shut. No mouth at all.
Also, her eyes are sunken in, and
And she's watching cartoons on the TV.
It's definitely, this is Dante, Joe Dante, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I have my directors correct. When you watch Gremlins, it's a goofy horror film, but then you have that one scene where the one girl is like detailing how her father died in the fucking chimney. Dante is so good at just those moments where like everything else is a little goofy, but it's still kind of scary. And then you have the, what the fuck is this? What the hell is that?
Well, then he takes it to the next level, because then they all go downstairs, they have dinner, and dinner is like Everything a kid would want.
Like ice cream, peanut butter on a burger, which I didn't even know children would even want. Potato chips, there's something else, but...
And clearly the family is thrilled to be eating because they are just downing this stuff, even though it doesn't necessarily look like it would taste good. The woman challenges him, is this healthy, whatever, addressing who she thinks is the parents. And then it starts to come unraveled because she's like, I have to go. And that's where Anthony takes it to the next level. Oh, Uncle's going to do a magic trick.
Which, if I may be a huge writing nerd for a minute, he performs a hat trick. Which, if any of you know what a hat trick can be a euphemism for, it's not a trick at all. It's kind of just a joke. Like, it's not a trick. So the fact that he does a hat trick is just a cool little writing joke.
And this is where the goofy and scary goes off the rails because he's got the hat, pulls a rabbit out of the hat, but then the rabbit becomes this horrific looking creature thing. Definitely everything is going south. We now realize Anthony is in control of every single thing in this reality and is controlling everybody, including the family. The sister now, who's played by Nancy Cartwright, which was hilarious because I totally forgot that. But as she's talking, I'm like, Bart?
You hear Bart come out for like a split second, and you're like, oh.
But she put a note in the purse to be like, help us, get us out of here. And Anthony saw it, so now she has to fight for her life in the cartoon. Guess what?
She doesn't make it.
She doesn't make it.
She doesn't make it.
And at the end of the day, it's just Anthony controlling this whole reality, which isn't reality. It's his reality, what he wants, and what he wants as a kid. And it is just messed up.
Yes, and when you watch it, I mean, I'm the jackass who said Jaws was fake, which it was. And E.T. was not as depressing as some people make it out to be. You can tell it's prosthetics. But what sells it is the actors. Like, they look genuinely terrified. And the acting is just so goddamn impressive. They sell the fact that these cartoons are not cartoons. They are horrific beings that will kill for fun. I love you.
To quote Jeff Daniels, you are the worst, period, generation, period, ever, period. So, we get on to the next one with one of my favorite directors, George Miller.
With John Lithgow.
I can't say for sure because I've not seen every single Twilight Zone episode, but I know this one specifically was taken from a Rod Serling TV episode.
Can't believe he didn't do his research for this.
So, John Lithgow on a plane, being freaked out, not a great flyer anyway, storm, lightning, looks out the window, and there's a creature on the wing.
Oh, yes. And you can immediately tell it's George Miller. If you've watched anything he's done, even if you've only watched Mad Max, you know it's George Miller. It's real people who look like cartoony in nature, but they're just real people.
That's where the Happy Feet reference comes in.
Shut up. And it's, I mean, again, I cannot state enough how much the actors have to sell these stories. The Twilight Zone isn't real unless the actors play into these, like, madcap, wacky situations. Or in the case of the first one, like a depressing, like, terrifying story. Lithgow sells it. And also, the makeup job for Lithgow was incredible. He looks like he's dying. Like just flushed and wow, just incredible job. But he sells the idea that there is this freaky creature on the wing going like, and he like screams, turns away, and everybody's like, what are you talking about, stupid? There's no creature on the wing, stupid.
And it's got one of the best jump scares that you know is coming. They close the blinds, and shit's freaking out, and the storm's still going on. He's like, okay. And he opens the window, and there's the creature right in his face, and you're like, whoa, awesome! So cool. Then he takes a gun at one point and blows the window out, so obviously everything goes flying out, including him, and one of the marshals that was on the plane grabs him. Now he's like face to face with the monster. Plane comes down, emergency landing, all that fun stuff.
Oh, but you forgot the best part. The monster's about to rip his face off. And he's like, no. Oh, no. You have to look like you're insane. There can be no evidence I was here. And that was such a fun little detail.
And then they do the emergency landing, get on the ground, they take care of John Lithgow. He's still screaming about this monster, terror, whatever. And then the mechanics come out because they got to fix some of the plane, obviously because there's a gunshot.
And a lightning strike.
And that's where they see all the horrible scratches and all that stuff on the side of the plane where the engine is, and it's like, oh my god, it did happen. This is awesome. And it's,
Lightning, don't do that.
again, perfect Twilight Zone.
And as Lithgow is getting carried away in his fun little crazy mobile, we have somebody who you might recognize from the beginning of the film. Dan Aykroyd as an EMT driver of all things. He's like, you want to listen to some music? He puts on some Creedence Clearwater Revival. Then he's like, you want to see something scary?
Which is a callback to the opening scene with Albert Brooks. It's such a fun 80s movie. They did a lot of anthology things in the 80s. I don't know why they got away from that. Like they do it today, but it's not really the caliber of the directors they had joining with a bunch of these, like Creepshow, Tales from the Dark Side. It's just something that doesn't happen anymore. But this is not like the greatest movie ever made, but it's so fun. It's a snapshot of the 80s. It does have both of scary, making you think, and then just the super sweet story. I really enjoy Twilight Zone the movie.
It perfectly captures what the Twilight Zone was. It was exploring what ifs about like the most wild of concepts. And I mean, if you are at all caught up with meme culture, you'll know the Twilight Zone is still very prominent as an entity. You have the meme of, imagine if you will, a shrimp fried this rice. It is such a great distillation and showcase of what the Twilight Zone was. And for any fans of the original show, or for anybody who wants to just watch a really good 80s movie, I'd say pick it up.
And the one thing we didn't mention, which is an ultimate callback to the TV show, is one of my favorite episodes, and I don't remember the title of it, but it's a man who just wants to be left alone so he can read everything. Well, he gets exactly what he wants. Population goes away. He has all the time in the world to read all the books he wants, but his glasses break. Played by Burgess Meredith. The narrator of the Twilight Zone, the movie, is Burgess Meredith. And it's just so cool to have him back, to hear his voice again, and to have him associated with the originals. Really appreciated that. If you have not seen Twilight Zone the movie, it's currently on Amazon Prime, but it is definitely well worth a watch.
And just remember, if you ever find yourself in a strange place with strange people, you've most likely entered the dark side.
Definitely keeping that.